I'm back with that fun tutorial I promised you guys last week, and this one is more graphic and more along the lines of the scroll motion stuff that I've done in the past, so it should be super fun. And it's something that I discovered when I was browsing around on the internet looking at cars, like you guys may have noticed I tend to do. And I was looking at the 2015 Subaru STI, and on their website they've got a little bit of scroll motion going on. You can see as I scroll up and down the car moves, but if you've watched my tutorials, we've kind of been there, done that. But if we go a little further down, here's where it gets interesting. They've got a video clip. It's not really a video clip, but essentially it was a video clip at one point, and it gets activated by scrolling. Scrolling up or down makes the video go forward and back. And I thought, wow, it would be really cool if Adobe Muse can do that. Too bad, nope, it can't. And then I kind of just figured out how to do it anyways. I thought Adobe Muse couldn't do it, but it turns out through the use of a slideshow and through the use of the new scroll motion features of Adobe Muse 7.0, we can make it happen. Here's my example that I created in Adobe Muse. And mine is actually a little smoother. It's more responsive. It doesn't lag as much as the one on the Subaru website. And the quality, I think, overall is just a little bit higher and more responsive. And that's created mostly by Adobe Muse. But let me show you how we get from a video clip to something that works in Adobe Muse and, more importantly, works in the web browsers. I'm going to minimize Muse for now because I want to talk about the prep work. And the prep work is essentially getting a video clip to instead be a bunch of JPEGs. And you can see here in this folder I have 458 sequence, which is a Ferrari 458. And I've got a bunch of photos that used to be a video clip. So you guys might be thinking, okay, yeah, I've got a video clip, but I don't have a bunch of photos that look like a video clip or a bunch of photos pulled from a video clip. But if you have Photoshop, you actually already have the tool to take your video clip and turn it into a bunch of still frames. All you have to do is pull your video clip. Here I have this video clip of that same Ferrari. Just a short little clip, and you'll really want to be doing this with short little clips like on the Subaru website. And I can take that video clip, it's just a few seconds long, and I can drag it into Photoshop, which gives me what looks like a photo, but there's this video timeline down here at the bottom. And we're not going to get fancy with the video timeline. We're not going to do any video editing in Photoshop. This is nothing crazy, so don't be freaked out. We're just going to open the video clip in Photoshop, and we're going to go to File, and then we are going to choose, I always forget this, I believe it's Export. Yep, Export followed by Render Video. There it is. So File, Export, Render Video. And render video normally means to render an edited video into a video that's in its final form. But what we're going to do is turn the video into JPEGs right now. So you can start at the top with naming this. I've already given this a name and I've chosen a place for it. I'm going to put it on the desktop. And not only am I going to put it on the desktop, but I'm going to have Photoshop create a subfolder so that way all these are together in one folder. I don't want to have JPEGs all over my desktop. That's annoying. And then down here, yours might say Adobe Media Encoder. Adobe Media Encoder will allow you to turn this video into another video format or just back into its original video format, but we want to switch that to Photoshop image sequence. We want to turn it into JPEGs. And then format here JPEG, and settings. You want to use the settings to lower the quality. These JPEGs will be big. I'm using a video here that's 720p, so it's 1280 by 720 pixels, and I'm going to get a bunch of pictures out of this. I'm exporting this. I want to say that I'm going to be exporting it at 5 frames per second. Right now it's set at 15, but I'm going to be changing that to 5 frames per second. So if this is a few seconds long, you can end up with a lot of pictures. If we look at that folder that I already have on my desktop, I've got 38 pictures in there. That's kind of a lot. So 38 pictures at a high level of quality is just going to be too big. Your web page is going to load too slow. So I'm pulling the quality all the way down to 3, which is going to give us some visible It's going to give us some visible JPEG compression, and that visible JPEG compression is exactly the reason why on the Subaru website and on other websites that use this, you'll see like a pattern on top of it. They throw a pattern on top of it to sort of block and disguise that JPEG compression. So don't be freaked out by the quality level of 3. We're going to kind of hide it a little bit later. So I'm going to leave the quality on 3. and format JPEG. Starting number doesn't really matter. I'm just going to leave it the way it is, 3 digits. That's fine. That's how the naming scheme is going to be. So I'm going to have 001, 002, 003, etc. as they're named. So the document size, I'm going to leave it at its original size of 1280 by 720, and the frame rate. Now, frame rate's important. If your frame rate's too high, you'll end up with way too many pictures. This is how many pictures you're going to get for every second of video. So I'm just going to set this on 5, which is a custom frame rate. And when I export 5, if it's 10 seconds long, I'll have 50 pictures. If it's 3.8 seconds long, I'll have 38 pictures. That's probably how I ended up with 38 pictures in the first place. Or I'm sorry, if it were 10 frames per second, 3.8 seconds would be 38. But I don't honestly know exactly how long my clip is, and I don't know how many frames I'm going to get out of this. So I would normally hit render, and it would spit out into that folder on the desktop that we specified up here. So give it a name, set a folder for it, make sure it's on JPEG and that the quality's been lowered, and then your frame rate you want to set. And with your frame rate too, if you do up the frame rate, you will be able to create a smoother video that on scroll in Adobe Muse. But again, it'll be bigger, it'll load slower. And if you do a lower frame rate, you will have a more choppy video, and that choppy video will load faster, so there's a benefit to that. So normally I'd hit render, but since I already did this, I already have it on my desktop, I can close the end result. And the end result is just a bunch of pictures in a folder. Whole bunch of pictures in a folder. Now we can hop into Muse. Once you have your pictures, and it's no longer a video clip, you can hop back into Muse. And in Adobe Muse, I want to go to the widgets library, not the library, but the widgets library, where the widgets that are built into Adobe Muse are found. I want to go to slideshows, not compositions this time. It needs to be a slideshow for the next part to work. So I choose slideshows, and I just want a blank slideshow, and I'm going to drag it in. Some of you guys might know where I'm going with this, but we're essentially taking a slideshow and making it play really, really fast, and we're going to trigger it to happen during scrolling. So now that I got my slideshow in here, I'm going to go to the little blue circle with the arrow in it, triangle in it, to pop out my settings. And on these settings, we don't want it to autoplay, because we want the scrolling to make it play. We don't want to enable swipe, and we don't want any of this extra junk down here. So I'm going to turn all this stuff off. Captions, counter, previous, next, all that just turned off. So it's nothing but the slideshow frame. So I personally like to have the new hero and new thumbnail always set to fill frame. So if I drop something in there, it'll scale to fill this box. It's really irrelevant in my example, because before I drop the pictures in, I'm going to make this box the same size as my pictures. I'm going to set it to 1280 by 720. But since everyone's different, if your frame is going to be smaller than your photos are, then set this to fill or fit depending on what you're trying to accomplish. But fill will fill the entire box, whereas fit will shrink the pictures and give you some empty space. So I'm more of a fan of fill. Transition fade, that is what you want, but we don't really want things to fade. So I'm actually going to set the transition speed to 0. And with the transition speed at 0, it'll instantly change from one photo to the next as we scroll, and I think that'll look pretty smooth. It'll look good. So now that we have all of that set, we're just about ready for the pictures, but before I drop the pictures in, I'm going to size this accordingly. The first time you click on a slideshow, you're selecting the composition, and you'll notice that you don't have handles to stretch it out and change the size. If you click it again, you get your handles, so I can stretch it out now. So I'm going to stretch it to here, I'm going to stretch it over to here. You know what? I'm not even going to size it perfectly. I've got it set to fill the box when I drag the pictures in there. I'm just going to go 760 by 460. It's kind of an arbitrary number that fills my area. I'll even go a little wider so that way it goes all the way to the black, my browser fill here. There we go. Now that I've got that scaled and good to go, I can drop my pictures in. So I'm going to switch back over to the desktop here and open up this folder. And I'm going to highlight all these. And if you spit them out of Photoshop the way I did, they're all going to be in alphabetical / chronological order. They will be alphabetized via the numbering to match the chronological order. So you don't have to worry about arranging these. You just highlight them all. Personally, I hit Command A. If you're on a PC, you could hit Control A for select all. And I'm just going to drag them on over all at the same time. And then I'm going to click in my slideshow frame with the little gun, the little cursor gun that's loaded with those pictures. And when I do that, kind of freezes. Hopefully it unfreezes. There we go. Alright, so now all of the photos are dropped into the slideshow and they're in the right order. So I've got a slideshow, great. If I preview it in the browser, that doesn't do much for me because that slideshow is not going to be moving. It's not changing. And before we do the scroll motion part, you'll want to make your page extra long because if we don't have room to scroll, then we don't really have room for this to animate. So I'm even going to scoot it down a little bit. You want to leave a little bit of room, or at least I do, to demonstrate the key position that we're about to set. And you want to leave plenty of room below so we can scroll past it. Depending on your design, your video might just fall in a place that works this way. But if it is at the very, very top of the page, then your video is going to have to start immediately when you start scrolling. And if your video is very, very low on a page, you're not going to be able to scroll past it if there's no blank space below it. So that could be a problem as well. It's just going to stop playing when you bump the bottom of the web page with the browser. So I'm going to leave room up top and below. So now that I've got the photos in there, I've got my slideshow created. I can select the slideshow, and now I want to head over to the scroll effects panel. I'm going to close these other panels that I have open. I'm going to go to scroll effects, and there are 4 sub-sections to scroll effects, the third of which is the slideshow section. So with your slideshow selected, come here and turn on the slideshow checkbox. So we're now applying scroll motion to the slideshow, and when you apply scroll motion to a slideshow, it's not your traditional scroll motion. We're not saying how the slideshow is going to move around on the screen. We're saying how the slideshow is going to advance from one slide to the next to the next. And the way we decide where it starts playing is using this little handle here called the key position. You've also got a box over here on the scroll effects panel where you can type in a value if you want to. But with this, I personally like to drag this to set where I want to trigger the beginning of the slideshow. And this little guy right here is basically a light switch. It's like a switch that can be flipped, and it gets flipped by the top of the browser. So as soon as the top of the browser collides with this invisible little T handle here, it's going to begin the playback of these frames. So if you set it really, really high up, it's going to start earlier. If you set it low down, it's going to start later. So it's up to you guys. I like to create a little gap where it begins playing even though we're not at the top yet. Because as soon as the video gets to the top, we're scrolling past it and we're not going to be able to see it anymore. At least pretty shortly after we start scrolling into it, we will have scrolled past it. So I like to leave a little gap here. So during this gap, it will be playing and it'll be on the screen. So now that I've got that set, I need to decide how quickly the slides change. So I'm going to come back over here to the scroll effects, and I'm going to say switch slides every, and 20 pixels is kind of a nice setting. It's a happy medium. If you set it to a lower value, like 10, it'll play back twice as fast. And one thing to keep in mind is this will loop over and over again. So if you have it play too quickly, then you'll see it loop. If you have it play more slowly, then you won't see it loop. So I'm going to explain in a moment how to figure out what number is the right number here. But let me preview this in the browser because I think we're there. Here we go. So it's up in the browser. I'm scrolling and it's not changing until I hit that key position, and now boom, it's changing. See that? And it looks like one of my slides might be out of position. So I could go through the layers palette and figure out which one that might be, but it does look like something is a little bit wrong here. So if that does happen to you, if something goes wrong, you can close up the scroll effects, open up the layers, and inside your layers you should find your slideshow with a little triangle next to it, and you can expand that. And the order of the slideshow is actually from bottom to top. So 0, 0, 0, 1, this all looks good so far. And if I look through these, it looks like it goes from 5 to 37 and then to 2. I have no idea why that happened. That's actually never happened to me before. It goes 37 and then 2. So this is looking really out of whack. I'll drag 2 down here between 1 and 3 where it belongs. And then I'll go find number 37. I'm just going to delete number 37. That one's just being a troublemaker. So if your slides are out of order, which they should not be, that's the first time that's happened to me, then you can go into the layers palette to rearrange them. And just remember, bottom to top is the order that they play in. So I'm going to preview it in the browser again. And when I do that, it looks like we're good. It looks like it's playing back real nice. Sweet. Alright, so now that we have that accomplished, let's talk about the looping issue. Let me preview it in the browser again, because I want to see if we actually catch it looping. As I scroll down, when I get to here, it looks like it's just enough frames that I don't get to see it loop. But let's say we had fewer frames, or let's actually say that this video is lower down on the page, and let's say it starts earlier, so it's going to go through the frames more quickly. I'm going to preview it in the browser again, and the video has already started, so as I scroll, mine's doing this weird jittering thing that it wasn't doing before. Maybe that's an issue that I ran into this time because I did not set my box to be the same resolution as the photos. I highly recommend that you set the box to be the same resolution as the photos. That will definitely avoid this problem of the photos being jumpy. So as I'm scrolling down, there, it looped. Right there you could see it loop. And that just doesn't look so good. I don't like the appearance of that loop. So if you want to make sure that it doesn't loop, what you can do, and this is math for those of you who hate math, up here it looks like my key position is set around 150, and I can even look at the scroll effects and find out what that number is. So it's set at 136. I'm just going to make it an even 150. I'm going to type in 150 here. There we go. And then the bottom of the photo, which is where you want to clear before it loops, you know, you want the top of the browser to be past that, that looks like it's at about 1050. And if that's at 1050 and the top of it where it begins playing is at 150, that's a difference, if I'm correct, of 900. I believe that's about 900. So I've got 900 pixels. And I've got how many photos? Let's look again. 38. So if I pull up the calculator and I type in that I have 900 pixels to cover, and I divide that by the 38 pictures that I have, I get 23.68, which I'll round up to 24. That means if I set this to change photos every 24 frames instead, that means I will have enough frames to cover the amount of space that the frames will be changing. I hope that makes sense to you guys. I'm not quite sure how else to explain it. But now we should not be able to see it loop. See how it doesn't loop? It's a little bit slower now. It's equally smooth if we scroll a little quicker, but again, if you want people to be able to enjoy a smooth slideshow, you want to have more frames to work with. If you only have 5 frames, it's going to be really, really choppy if that's happening over the course of 3-4 seconds. So now about this quality, I mentioned earlier that we were going to cover up the JPEG compression that we could see here by lowering the quality of these photos. This level of quality here is not beautiful for a photograph. It's good for a video, but it's not beautiful for a photograph. And I'm going to come back over here to my scroll activated clip here, and you can see this one again has no weird issues with being jumpy or anything. I set the resolution of the frame, and I set the resolution of the photos or the still frames to be the same. So as I scroll through here, see it's real nice and smooth. But again, it's got that quality issue. So you may have just noticed me delete a layer from above this slideshow, and what that layer was a distracting little mesh pattern, and that distracting little mesh pattern is sort of the hip thing to do now in design to make a video, one, look like a video so people know that it's supposed to be a video, and 2, it covers up that JPEG compression. So what I did, because that little mesh is kind of annoying to build, is on museresources.com. If you pop open your a new window on your web browser, go to museresources.com, go to libraries, and scroll down past all this good stuff to the graphics and text section, where you'll also find that icon megapack. The icon megapack, it seems like people are really going nuts over it. Thank you for that. And the video pattern overlays, this is just a quick free download where you hit the download button and it gives you this Muse library file in your downloads folder. Just double click on that and it will add this video pattern overlays to the library, not the widgets library, but the regular library panel in Muse. And then you can grab one of 5 different styles. So there's this dot hatch pattern, vertical lines, horizontal lines, cross hatch. These are for you guys to make your examples of this tutorial look better and to cover up that compression. So I'm just going to drop this dot hatch pattern on here. You could use these on still photos too if you guys like the way they look. And I'm going to scale it. It'll automatically tile it to fill the whole thing. scale it over, and now when I play it back, it has a pattern over it, but that pattern actually disguises that JPEG compression and gives it that video style. So pretty cool stuff. I hope you guys like this. If you guys do like this, please subscribe if you have not already. Head over to museresources.com, check out the video pattern overlays, buy yourself an icon mega pack, and get cranking with this stuff, because I know I've got more coming soon, so you guys will want to be subscribed so you don't miss anything. Alright guys, enjoy!